Hi there, welcome to Darlene's Creative Studio. Today I'm just going to do a quick flip through of the Moody Blues digital kit from Mad Paper Crush. Sharon has invited me to be on her design team, and when I saw this digital kit about a month ago, I knew I wanted to use it in a journal, and then when she invited me on her design team, that was the first kit that I downloaded. So I'm going to be making myself a journal. I really wanted to make a journal with some blues and denim, and that's kind of my colors. So when I saw this kit, I was madly in love. So I'm just gonna flip through the kit, and then I'm going to show you some of my ideas of what I'm going to make with the kit. This is the some of the papers, and I just put this one here because it has the name of the kit and Sharon's shop name, and you can find her on Etsy. And if you use the code Darlene's with an S creative shop, there is a discount, I believe. She gave us all codes to give to our followers and our friends and family to use in her shop. So I'm going to flip through this. There was one thing when I started to print out these kits, my printer for some reason did not like it, and it kept printing about, I don't know, a quarter of the page, and then it would just stop and spit it out. And I think it was because I was looking at some videos earlier, and I think there was just too much going on between my printer and my computer. But what I did do, and I don't want to waste the images, is that I just cut off the blank piece of paper so that I can still use some of these images. So I did it to one or two of the pages. So these are half pages of what printed out. So I saved those. And then there was only a quarter of a page printed here, and I put it back in the printer and unfortunately put it on the same side. So I'm going to cut that little image part off and still be able to use the rest of the page. So I did not waste any of these papers. The other thing I did is one of the papers is actually just like a tea stained paper page, and I printed that on the backs of all of the images. And when I was putting the papers in, I put them in upside down. So this one actually has the tea stained paper behind it, and these are all just the little images. So it does not have it on the back because I accidentally printed it on the front. But these are some of the papers that come in the kit. So this is a file folder. There's two little file folders there. I thought that was really cute. I'm going to be using those and make some little file folders in the journal. And these are just some little ephemera pieces. And again, I printed that paper in the background. Don't know why. This is a triple tag with just some little ephemera. And I'm going to leave that as a triple tag, I think. And then if I do want to make some more, I will print this again and cut them as individuals. But there's that one. And I've printed the tea stain paper on the back of the tags. This is my favorite page, and I think this is going to be the cover of my journal. And I'll show you that a little bit later. And again, so what I thinking of doing is if I fold that in half, and I just have to cut off the white lines, but I have to tuck that under the journal cover anyway, so I'm not worried about that. That gives me extra space. So this is actually going to be the front of my journal, and that's going to be the back. So I'm really looking forward to creating this journal. There's this page, and every single one of them has a little bit of blue fabric or wallpaper. I just love them. They're just gorgeous. And here's another one. And again with the tea stained on the back. Love the vintage ads. Here's another one. Tea stained on the back. And these might be signature covers or actual pages. Now this one was one of her other kits. It was a label kit, and I started to print it, and it of course gave me trouble. But I'm still going to use this page because if I glue this onto something, you won't see that little bit. So I don't throw anything away. I always reuse everything. So there's another one. I love this material. Tea stained the back. And I printed this one twice because I knew that I was using one for the cover, and I wanted to be able to use that for something else. And then she has two, what I call like wallpaper pages. I think they go this way. And one is in a tea stain color, and one is in the blues. And again, I put the tea stain on the back. And then she has one more of the what I call little cutouts. And again, I printed the tea stain on the wrong side, but that's okay because these are going to be glued to something anyway. But that was the other one. So this is a really beautiful kit. If you love blues, this is going to be just gorgeous. Now she does have another kit called Vintage Labels, and it comes with all these labels, but it comes in a whole bunch of different colors, and then it'll have tea stain behind it. And then the different colors. This was the blues. I wanted the blue labels, and I printed it out on my white paper, and of course it got jammed, so it only did half of them. So I've cut them off. I will be able to use these labels as well. And then when I printed it again, when I finally got my printer working and printed it with the blue labels, I printed that tea stain page that she had in her Moody Blue kit behind them so that they coordinated with the papers that I have. It has that same background so that I can use these labels in my blue journal. And I also have the white ones and these little bits and pieces left over. So that is her Moody Blue digital kit. Again, I'm really looking forward to using this kit. And what I'm going to do is just take some, I have a gazillion Reader's Digest covers. And I'm going to take one of the Reader's Digest covers and use that as my book board for the journal. So I've picked the ugliest one I could find in my stash, which is this striped, horrible one. And I'm going to be using that folded page, if I can find it here. And that's going to be my front cover right there. So I have lots of room to do the folds because I do not have to take the paper all the way to the edge, because this is going to be the spine and I'm going to be covering my spine in fabric. So this part will actually be fabric, and I create my own 1 inch, 1.5 inch, whatever size I want spine. So I'll be doing that, and then I'll be covering this with the paper. So that will be my front cover. And that will be my back cover. So I'm going to work on that as my journal. And then the inside pages, once I get everything done, the inside pages will probably be one of these papers as well. She also has a marble kit. It's called All the Marbles, I believe it's called. And it has about 12 to 14 marbled pages, and there was a blue one in there, and it does have a similar coloring to the tea stain page, so that might even be the inside of the cover. I'm just kind of printing out some papers that I think will be really cool in the journal, and then working on that. But I'm going to go ahead and cover this book, these book covers, with this paper, and then I'm going to make the spine and add the fabric and then go from there. But I really, really wanted to use this on the cover. So I'm going to go ahead and start on the journal, and I will show you the progress. I wanted to show you how I have covered the Reader's Digest cover. I have taken the papers, just let me cut this little piece off here. I have taken the covers and just put them on the front and the back and overlap them. And then I created a spine using Nick the Booksmith's Hollowback spine course. I always use that spine. I like the curve of it and the shape of it. I've used a piece of the denim, and I did stamp it. I did show a picture of that earlier. I just took a black ink pad and one of my stamps, and I stamped the denim, and then I put it on the spine. And I just brought the material around into the insides and used a piece of cardstock on the inside of the spine. Excuse me. So when I go to put my signatures in, they will be attached to a piece of fabric, and that will get glued down here. And then for the end papers, I'm just going to be using some of the scraps. This was that piece that I only printed halfway. So I'm just going to use those. And then the other half of one of, I'm using this one again because I put the back cover on upside down. So I had to pull it off and cut the second piece that I had printed, the same pattern, and put that on. So this is going to be the inside cover. And then I'm using the other half of that other paper for the other side. So that will be my inside pages, but I can't put those on until I put my signatures in. But I'm just kind of showing you what I'm working with. And then the inside, I've used that, the blue image of what I call the collaged wallpapers. I've used that, and I just cut that in half. So I've cut it in half this way, and I'm using this portion here to make some pockets. And for that, all I've done is, so this was it cut in half, like that. So I just cut them both in half. And then I gave myself a 1/2 inch border on the left and the bottom. And I've just cut the corner out and folded those under. When I make my pockets for the sides, I like to have these little flaps, because then it gives you room to put things in. If you just use the flat paper like this and then just glue it down, it's a really tight fit, and you can only put one thing in it. So for me, I like to add these little flaps. So that will go on there like that. And the same with the other side. So I'll be adding a pocket on that side. And then I took some of the ephemera, and I like to cut up all the ephemera when there's little pieces of extras. I like to cut them up because then you can actually pick it up and just kind of lay it somewhere and see how it looks. When it's on a full sheet, it's hard to envision where it's going to go or where you can use it in a journal. So I always cut up those little bits of ephemera and just kind of leave a little pile there. So these were in the ephemera, she gave us little bits and pieces of wallpaper and samples and stuff like that. So I've just cut these, and now I'm going to trim these down. I don't need that big a flap on the inside. So I just cut the little wallpaper, and that's going to go on the front of each of these pockets here. Cut that one off. So there's another one. And again, I've added the little flaps. I am going to glue across the bottom. I'm not worried about that, but the flaps give you that little bit of extra to stick something in there. So I'm going to be putting those on the fronts of the pockets. And then I just took little pieces of the ephemera, and I think I'm just going to put those on top just for a little detail. So in the inside covers, I will have a little pocket. And then I will have another pocket with here on the front. I'll have that pocket. And I did cut up the tag, and I made a little trifold, and that's going to go in that pocket. So I'm just kind of laying things out. I took the other half of the, excuse me, lose my voice. The other half of this wallpaper piece, and I cut myself some whale tail tabs out of that section. I might use those for the sides of the signatures. I've also cut some muslin. I have little muslin scraps, and whenever I get little scraps, I keep them as a little strip, and I cut it. So I might use these on the sides of the signatures. I haven't decided, but I kind of keep all this stuff handy so that when I'm ready to put the signatures and stuff together, I have those cut out. I did cut out the little file folders, the little kit that came with it, the 1 page. I think it was something like that. So I've cut those out, and I will use those somewhere inside the journal as well. And then the signatures, I'm just going to move this out of the way here. The signatures, I took those 4 pages, and I just cut off the white trim around the outsides. So I've got myself 5 signatures, and these are just the collage pages that come with the kit. And again, love, love, love the layouts and what's included with these papers. So again, I'll be using these as my signatures, and I did put the tea stain paper on the inside, and these fit really nicely. Let me just take my little pockets out here. I just cut them down to size, and they fit really nicely inside the journal. So I'm going to have 5 signatures, And these are going to be what I call my signature covers. So I will be working with those as signature covers. Like that and like that. So there's my signature covers, and they would go inside the journal. So that's as far as I've gotten. Oh wait, and I did actually take some, move that out of the way. I'm just gonna put a little box inside this so it sits flat so you can see it better. There you go. So for the front cover, I really love the collage, but I think I'm gonna go ahead and play with a couple of things. I've taken a little piece of that muslin. I'm going to put it down first, and then this was one of the pieces of ephemera in that little ephemera pack. She gives you little samples of the wallpaper, so I'm thinking of putting that down. And there was another sample of the wallpaper. I'm going to put that one down, and then perhaps a book plate. And then I took one of the vintage labels, and I'm just going to slide that in there so you could see what the label looks like that. And then I grabbed some of her little pieces of ephemera, and I think I'm just going to give it like a 3D effect onto the front cover here. I think I'm just going to throw some little pieces on here like this as a little extra 3D effect. So that will be the cover, and I may put the word journal in there, or creative journal. I think this is going to be a creative journal for me, for keeping instructions on some of the journals that I make. I did make some smaller journals, but I'm selling those that have those creative pages in it. But I thought this one would be better because I've taken a couple other courses, and I want to keep the notes from those courses somewhere. So this is what I'm going to be using. Now I haven't decided if I'm going to put something along the edge of the denim just to keep it from fraying. I might get a small piece of lace or something like that to put there. I was even thinking before I attached the spine, which would have been nice. I think about it afterwards, which happens a lot. Let go of me. Was to have something like this muslin kind of sticking out the edge there, having that frayed part. So I would have put a little strip of this down first and then glued that flap down, and then I would have had that little bit of fray there. That would have been nice too. But I am going to look through my stash of trims and maybe add something along that edge as well. So I'm going to work on attaching this to the front cover. Just going to use my Fabri-Tac. I don't think I'm going to use my Distress ink. I don't want to go with that dark, but I might use my old paper. I've got old paper, and I've got another one that's called Antique Linen. And I might try one of those on just one of the scraps, just to kind of see, maybe on the file folders, to see if I like the edge, and then I might do that for some of these. I don't want to make it dark. I want to keep it light and airy, and that nice soft blue feel to it. So I'm going to play with those and start adding the labels on. So I have gone ahead and glued on my front collage layer, and I did use the old paper. I tried the antique linen and you didn't see it as much, but the old paper just leaves a little bit of a distressed edge, but I like to take away the white edge of the paper when you cut something out. I'm just grabbing something here like this one. You tend to see the white paper along the edge, so when you lay it down you kind of see that from an angle. So I like to distress the edges just a little tiny bit to get rid of that white on the edge. So that's all I did. I used the old paper and on all the pieces, and it just took away that little bit of whiteness to the edges of the paper. Now I'm going to fit my book plate. Let me just move this guy out of the way. Onto the front cover, and I'm going to get out my little punching board here. So I'm just going to place this on here to where I would like it to sit. And I'm just going to take a pen and mark the holes, and then I'm going to punch them out. I hope that's even. I'm terrible at eyeballing things. They usually end up being crooked. So there's 1 1/4, and there's 1 1/4 there. Okay. So I'm just going to mark my circles. And then I just take my little punchy awl thing and I just put it right in the center of that circle and push. Like that. And I'll do the second one. Like that. And that's going to go on there. Brads. And when I put these on, I like to put a little bit of glue just on these two little flaps here. If I can get my glue working, there we go. Just a touch, just to kind of hold it in place. And of course my glue is almost at the end. I'll have to get a new bottle out for the rest of this. But all right, just enough to tack it. It's just so that it's sticky. And I'm going to put that over top of the holes like that. I'm going to get my brads out. And I just bought these on Amazon, a little pack of, 100 I think it was. And my fingers are sticky and they're sticking to my fingers. Okay. Sorry. When you're tired, I get the giggles. There we go. All right. Let's put the other one in. There we go. Put those in. And I'm just going to flip it over. And I'm going to grab my masking tape. Because anyone who knows me and knows I like to put masking tape. Where's my little ball thingy? Okay, make sure I'm still in frame here. So I just open up those little feet. Push them and open them up like that. And then I just use the end of my awl and push them really nice and snug right in the middle. Ouch. All right. And then I just get a little piece of masking tape. The craft gods are fighting me today. It's like, let's make it as difficult as possible for Darlene to do anything. Should never do things when you haven't had enough sleep. Okay, and then I just put a little piece of masking tape. That stops the brad from moving around and loosening up. You know, the little feet pulling through. So there we go. So there's that. And then, like I say, I'm going to print a little label. I just put this one in here to kind of show you what it's going to look like once I get a label in there. So there's my front cover with my brads. And you always want to put your brads or your book plate on before you do your inside. So I usually do my front cover first. I get my sides, my coverings put on and my spine put on, and then I decorate the front as it's going to be. And then now that I know that that's done, I can start working on the signatures. So I'm going to take my signatures. I'm just going to set that aside for a moment. So I've got 5 signatures here. And again, I haven't decided whether I'm going to use, little fabric tabs on the sides of, I think I might do fabric. I just kind of like that look, and it'll pull in that piece that's on the front cover. I also have just these little paper tabs. So I'll keep those. I might put those in a little pouch somewhere, because once I start putting some of the projects in there, I might want to label some of the projects. So I might stick these on the side and put like Nick the Booksmith's hollow back spine or whatever. I might put the instructions in here, and then I could put that on the actual page and put spine so that I have the instructions in here. So I'll keep those and maybe put those in separately, but I'm going to definitely put these on the fronts of each of the signatures. So I'm going to need one more because I have 5 signatures. And when you do this, you have to take into account when you're putting your signatures in here, what kind of closure you're going to use. Now, I normally use a fastener and an elastic, or I put an eyelet on either side and I use a tie. whichever, or you know, an elastic all the way around it, but whatever you use, you normally have the tie in the center. So when you put your tabs in, you don't want them sticking out so much that when you have a closure there, that it's going to squish it. So I want to make sure that my tabs are in far enough that they're not going to interfere with that closure. So that's something else you have to take into consideration when putting all your signatures and everything together. So it's always good to make your signatures, set them inside the book, and then start adding all your little extra bits so you can see how far they stick out and if they're going to interfere with any closures, if you're going to put tabs on the top, that kind of thing. You want to see where they're going to come stick out. So I'm going to take these. These were 8.5 by 11s, and I've only cut them down. I think my journal is 7.5 inches tall. 7 5/8. So I've just cut my papers to 7.5. So this was my 8.5 by 11, and I've just cut off those little edges, the little white edges. I trimmed those off, and then I just cut it to 7.5. And then the width was actually the 11, which was 5.5, 5 1/4. And after cutting off these little trim pieces, it came to about 5 1/4. So I just trimmed the edges off and then cut them. I didn't even have to trim it anymore. It was already wide enough. And then once you get your signatures all put together, I will trim off the edges of some of the other papers. But so that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to start printing off the signatures, or the papers that go inside the signatures. And again, I'm going to be printing these because I would like to do my creative projects in this one. So I will probably print it on an ivory colored paper, and if I don't have, I think I do have ivory colored paper, and if I don't, I'll print it on white and then print this tea stain page over top of it, so I will have the same look throughout the journal. So I'm going to go ahead and go do that, and once I get the signatures all put together, we'll come back. So I have gone ahead and printed the signatures, and I have 5 different signatures, and inside I have my creative projects pages, and there are going to be 4 projects per signature. So I printed them on 8.5 by 11, and I fixed them so that when I went to print them, I would have a space on the bottom, and I would trim off that extra 1/2 inch because these are 7.5 inch, and I printed them on 8.5 inch by 11 papers. So I adjusted it a little so that they would print out on a 7.5, and then I just trimmed off that extra 1/4 inch off the sides. So there are my 5 signatures all ready to go, and I'm just going to take a piece of scrapbooking paper, and I'm going to cut a spine. Now my spine is 1 5/8. When I created it, it was 1 5/8 piece of chipboard, and I want to cut a piece that will fit in the spine, but you can close it without it blocking closing, like you don't feel it crunching or anything like that. So this is a 1.5 inch piece of chipboard or a cardstock. That's going to be my template for creating the holes for my 5 signatures. So I'm going to go ahead and create some holes, measure this all out, and decide where all my signatures are going to sit on this template. And then I'm going to glue this to a piece of fabric, and I'm just going to use a scrap of my Tim Holtz fabric to sew these signatures to, and this template will actually get glued to the back of the fabric. Once I have all my holes punched out on here, I will glue this to the back of the fabric and then sew my signatures onto the fabric from this side like this. I will taper the fabric just a little bit, and then this will get glued into my book. I will glue the fabric. Actually, I'm going to put a little piece of cardstock on the back of this once it's glued in, just to give it some stability because it's very thin, and when you're folding it, I don't want it to be too flimsy. So I'm going to put the template, sew that together, and then I will actually glue a piece of this cardstock to the back of this and taper the edges, and then glue this, just the fabric flaps to the sides here. I do not glue it to the spine, so that it's called a hollow back, so it will pull away from the spine. So once I get these sewn on here, I'll put my cardstock on the back. I will set it in with the material attached into my spine, and the fabric flaps will get glued down. And then I will add my side papers and stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and create my template and glue that onto the back of the fabric and sew the signatures to the back of the fabric. And I will come back and show you how I'm doing. Okay, I've created my fabric piece with my spine attached, and I just wanted to show you a quick and easy way to do this. I like to sew a lot of stitches. I use a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 hole for stitching my signatures in, but there's another way. Because my spine piece is 1.5 inches, I can lay this on my scoreboard and literally do every 1/4 inch. So I can score it every 1/4 inch like this, and it will give me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines for my signatures. So I will score that all the way down. I'll do this really quickly. So that's my even signatures, and there's a 1/4 inch from the front and the back. And then I just turn it sideways, and I decide I want the signatures to start 1/2 inch from the top and 1/2 inch from the bottom. So there's my 2 intersecting lines to put my first punch. And then I just kind of go from there. I find the center, which is 3 3/4. So there's my center one. Then I find the center between those two, and then I find the center between the others. So that's all I do to create my lines for punching. And then I just take this, and before I punch the holes in this and the intersecting lines, I get a piece of spare paper, and I put this underneath in the center on that center line. It doesn't really have to be on center because I'm going to fold it, so it doesn't really matter. But I put that underneath, and then when I start punching my holes, I'm going to make sure, I'm going to do the center ones first, and I'm just going to go ahead and go down and punch my holes. Let's just say there and there. And I'll punch that whole center line first and then remove it, and I will have my template for doing my signatures. Then I'm just going to continue to punch the rest of the holes where the lines connect, and that will give me my template for the signature for sewing in my signatures. So I have printed out my signatures for my creative journal, and I have 5 projects in each signature with 5 signatures. I have sewn the signatures onto a little cardstock template that was glued onto the back of this piece of fabric. And once I got the signature sewn in, I put a piece of the cardstock on the back of the fabric and then set the signature into the book, held it like this, and glued down my 2 fabric flaps. So they are now glued down like that. And then now I get to work on the inside. So I'm going to be putting this piece of paper, let me just take all my little goodies off. This piece of paper will be going on the inside here. And I'm just grabbing another Fabri-Tac because this one is almost empty. It's driving me crazy. And what I think I'm going to do for these inside pages is just take that old paper, distress ink, and I'm just going to do around the edges really quickly to get rid of that whiteness on the edges of the paper there. And this is a thinner paper that I've printed this on, so I just use this little piece of one of the back of the paper pads just to do the edges, so that so you can see it just adds a little tiny bit of color to the edges. So now this one will get glued on to this side, and then I have this other one, and you might be able to see it a little better on this side. So this leaves a little bit, almost a greeny tinge. It's just a light, I guess it's the color of the paper gets when it gets old. That's why they call it old paper. But I didn't want to do all that browns. I mean, it would probably look gorgeous with the distressed ink brown, but it's just not what I was looking for this one. Okay, so I don't think that one's going to work. So let's open up a new Fabri-Tac and see if it is open. Should be, but I'm just going to poke a little end in this. Something in this to give me a little more poke one of my awls in there. Ooh, I can hear it give a little whoo-hoo. Yeah, so everything should be working there. Let's see if I can get this glued on here. Yeah, that's better. I was waiting for ages for the other one. It was like the Heinz ketchup commercial. All right, so let's get this little guy in. And then once I get these side papers in, I'll start adding pockets and labels and all that kind of stuff to the edges of my signatures and my inside covers. And I'm just going to get my brayer. I like to use my brayer, and I'm just going to turn this sideways just so I can get that nice and flat on the edges. There we go. Very nice. And then we'll go to the back and we'll do this one. And I'll probably collage the signature covers a little bit more. Like I say, add some fabric tabs. I have to decide also on the closure for the book. But I've been just taking my time and doing a little bit at a time. I have one of my family, my sister is up this weekend visiting my mom. Now that the lockdown is done, we're starting to get some family come up and visit. They've all had their shots, so it's really nice for them to come up and see my mom. There we go. So that is on there like that. So there we have our hollow back spine, as you can see. You don't glue it to the spine, and you do that so that you can open up the book and it will lay flat. And I did use a nice light blue embroidery floss, cotton type thread to sew in the journals to go with that Moody blue theme. So there's my front one, and then we're going to add this little pocket here onto the front. So let's go ahead and do that. And again, I'll get the lid of the glue out of my mouth. I like to add these flaps just to give me a little more room in my pockets. So I squeeze those down so I can get those positioned properly. There we go. And I don't want to put it too close to the edge because I have to do that closure, remember, and I might put an eyelet there. So I just want to make sure I give myself lots of room in case I want to put an eyelet on the front. Okay, so there's that pocket, and then I'm just going to glue this little piece on top. Thin enough? Yeah. And I just made two little flaps on the side, and then I will put a little bead of glue across the bottom here. And that is just going to go right on the front of this pocket. Right there. And I hope I'm in frame. Yes, I am. So there's that. And then I was just going to add this little guy onto the front of that little pocket. And this was one of the little pieces of ephemera from the ephemera page. Put the lid on that guy so it doesn't dry out. Like that. So that gives me a little pocket down here and a lovely nice thick pocket here, and I can put that trifold tag there. But I'm going to let that dry a little bit before I put anything in the pockets. And we'll move to the back. And we'll do the same thing. We'll add our pockets. And again, you want to be in far enough from this edge because I might put an eyelet on the back too. I haven't decided if I want to do the elastic and fastener or if I want to do the 2 eyelets and the tie. Haven't decided what kind of closure. And I think I normally decide when I get closer to the end, once I see the journal kind of put together. Kind of tells you what kind of closure it wants. All right, so let's put that pocket on there. Like that. And then this little piece of ephemera as well. That will just go on there like that. And there we go. So we've got our pockets on the inside. We'll let those dry nice and tight. We'll close that up. Whoop. Grabbing things. So there is my journal. And the fabric I let fray a little bit on the edges, so I've got a little bit of a header there, a little header and tail there. And I still have to print out my little label there for the Creative Journal. So when we open it up, we've got that, and now I can decide if I want to use the fabric tabs on the fronts of these. And I think I might. I just like that idea of the fabric, and I'm just going to use the glue. And what I might do afterwards is maybe do a little creative stitch in there as well. Or add a little piece of paper or something just to give it a little, and let's just see. Now see, that's sticking out a little bit too much. So let's move that in just a tiny bit while the glue is still wet. There we go. That's better. I only want it to stick out just a little tiny bit on the edge. So I'm going to keep working on this. I'll add the tabs, decide on if I'm going to add something, you know, maybe like one of these little bird pictures. I can maybe add that to the corner there. And that's upside down, isn't it? Yes, it is. Something like that to kind of add something to the tab, or maybe sew something on there with some thread. But I am going to go ahead and get the rest of my ephemera pages. And I also have these labels. I might cut out a couple of those and put a couple of labels on the fronts of some of these. So I'm just going to keep going and cutting. I'll add my tabs and we'll be back to show you how it's going. So I finished the journal and I'm just going to do a quick flip through of all the little papers and stuff that I've used. I ended up using the whole kit. Every single piece of paper that I printed out, and some I printed a couple of times, I used every single piece of ephemera, even the plain pages. I cut those up and used those for belly bands. But I created this was the Reader's Digest cover, and it has 5 signatures. And I ended up using just a white elastic closure with a little eyelet on the back. I did add some more of the little ephemera pieces and little bits and scraps of the material or wallpaper samples. I did collage the front a little bit more. I did end up making my tag with the Creative Journal, and this is Algerian. The font is Algerian. On the inside, I put that paper on the inside. I did put the pocket in. I did make a second pocket with some of the wallpaper ephemera, and then this was one of the scraps left over from the large page of collage, and I just made a tag with that. I did print out the 3 triple tag and use that in there. I did end up using her vintage labels. I printed out those blues and printed it on the back of that old paper page. I think it was page 4 of the kit, and it just kind of blended everything together, but I did end up using those. And then the background is again pieces of the digital kit, the wallpaper or the fabric that she had in there. I just use that. I added some muslin tabs and muslin in the back there. I used the scraps of one of the pages and just made some belly bands, and then these were some of the little bits of ephemera that I've added on. And this was the little file folder page. I did print this twice so I could use it twice, and I will use that to write on. So that just tucks in there. And then this is my creative journal pages that I've created for myself. And again, I use this just to record when I create a project. So it has the project title, tools and supplies, materials that I've used, the step-by-step instructions, a little page to draw anything that I need any diagrams for, and then more notes here. I've got notes or variations to try. So if I've made something and I think I decided I wanted to put a little bit of the muslin fray along the edge here, so I might write that in there. And then if I make them and sell them, I kind of write in there when I've made them so that I know when I can go back and how much I sold them for. And there's 4 projects per signature. And then for the signature covers, I used one of the decoupage collage pages. So there was 5 or 6 of them, and I used 5 of them for my signatures. And again, the vintage label with some of the scrap wallpaper, and then the muslin. And then I did use the whale tail tab with some of the scraps. So every other one has a fabric tab, and then the other one has the card tab. And then again, there's the file folder. This was a scrap of the collage piece, and then some of the small ephemera. Here's another one of the vintage labels, and then the wallpaper behind with the muslin, and I used the muslin for the tab. This one was the scrap of the collage. I made a pocket, and this is some more ephemera. And again, this is one of the vintage labels. I did print 1 or 2 of the pages twice. There's some more of the ephemera. I put a little bit of fabric here because this was the one that I accidentally had printed some of the labels, and it had a little strip of the labels printed out there. So I just covered it with fabric, and I didn't want to waste that whole page. And this was the last of the scrap of that collaged page that I used for belly bands. 4 more projects, another vintage label and a tab, another belly band with another one of the file folders, and again, just using up the scraps. This was a scrap piece of leftover that I'd cut out, and then some more of the ephemera pieces. And I used a nice light blue embroidery floss to sew the pages in. It's 100% cotton, another vintage label, and a muslin tab. And then another belly band, again, using up the scraps, and little bits and pieces of whatever I had left over. And then another trifold. I did print this twice. I really like these little trifold tag pages. And then another tag, a scrap there. And then I used a piece of elastic with the little barbs on the end. I bought my own barbs, and they're very hard to find separately. You can only buy them on elastic. I know Amazon has a kit where you can buy a spool of elastic, and it comes with 100 of these little barb feet, but you can't actually buy these separately anymore. Very hard to find. And then on the back, I just used some scraps and just collaged a little bit more. Again, just little pieces that were left over. I glued them on to add a little bit more definition to the back. And that is my own creative journal for the Mad Paper Crush. She has her own Etsy shop. If you go there, she's got some lovely digitals. And if you use the code Darlene's Creative Shop, there is a discount. Thank you so much for watching. Talk to you real soon. Bye for now.